All right, now going back to the topic again, whenever you have speciation, the formation of new species, this is driven by divergence. Okay, when you say divergence here, you have a single species and it diverges or it divides into two or more subspecies that you have. Okay, so example that we have here are your dogs. Okay, if you are looking at the scientific name of your dog, it's Canis familiaris. Okay, we've talked about this when we've talked about Carolus linnaeus. We said Carolus linnaeus introduced binomial nomenclature, the use of two names in the scientific names of the different organisms. Okay, so again, when you say Canis familiaris here, this is a scientific name of all types of dogs. Okay, but your dogs have actually given birth, made rise to the different subspecies. Okay, and again, the process through which you form a new species, that would be called speciation. Okay, now all these different types of dogs here, different breeds of dogs here, all belong to Canis familiaris. But of course, we know that they all have different characteristics. They are all subspecies of your Canis familiaris. Okay, so again, the process through which you make, the process through which you form a new species, you'd call that speciation. Okay, we move on to the next slide. Now we have the two different models of evolution here. Okay, two different models of evolution. They are opposites. Essentially, they're opposites. The first one here is gradualism. Okay, from the term itself, it says gradual. Okay, you all know what the meaning of gradual is. That means it is a very slow process. It is a very slow process. So gradualism here is a model of evolution in which gradual change occurs over a long period of time. So according to this model of evolution, the changes, the adaptation, everything that happens in your organism has taken a long period of time, and the changes happened very slowly. Okay, hence the term gradualism. Now the opposite is the second type of, or the second model of evolution that we have, that's punctuated equilibrium. Okay, in punctuated equilibrium here, it states that there is rapid change, or there is a period of rapid change, a lot of changes happening at just a very short period of time. And then there is going to be a period of no change or little change. And after that, there is going to be a period of rapid change again. Okay, so that's punctuated equilibrium, a period of rapid change. Then after that, you will have a short period or a period of no change or little change. And after that, you will have a period of rapid change again, rapid changes again. Okay, so essentially, it is the opposite of your gradualism. Okay, so again, gradualism, all these changes, all the adaptations that your organism has had, it happens very slowly. And so it takes a longer period of time. In your punctuated equilibrium, it happens very fast. Okay, there's going to be a lot of changes in a very short period of time, followed by a period of no change or little change. Then there's going to be a period of rapid change again. Okay, so these are the two models of evolution. Any questions so far, people? Any questions? Okay, if you have no questions, let me move on. Now, these here are the two evolutionary timescales that we have. Okay, this is very much connected to the two models of evolution that we have just talked about. Okay, if you think of your evolutionary timescales, okay, the amount of time, the length of time that you study evolution, you have two types. Okay, you have your microevolution and macroevolution. Okay, as the prefix suggests here, micro, that means small. Okay, so these are small scale changes over just few generations. Okay, so say you are just studying a species of your beetle. Okay, so just small scale changes involving only one species maybe, or maybe two species, and you are just studying the differences, the adaptations that happened over just very few generations, maybe just 2 generations, 3 generations. Okay, your macroevolution, on the other hand, this is large-scale changes over a longer period of time. So that means this involves more than 1, more than 2, more than 3 species. Now you are studying so many species, and you are studying it, the evolution of these species over a longer period of time. Okay, so again, the major difference is that in microevolution, there's small-scale changes. Okay, involving maybe just 1 species, 2 species. Your macroevolution, large scale. Okay, more than 2, more than 3 species. Now, of course, your microevolution, you're only studying few generations, maybe 3 generations, 2 generations. But in your macroevolution, you're studying this for over a longer period of time. Okay, you're studying longer periods of evolution. Okay, so again, these are the 2 evolutionary timescales that we have. Now, these are the different evidences for evolution. That is, or this is our first objective today. Okay. Now, what are some evidences that were used by our scientists to say that evolution really has happened? To say that organisms really has evolved or have evolved? The first one that you have here is embryonic development. Secondly, you have your body structures. Third, microevolution. We've just talked about this. Then fourth, you have your biomolecules. And the last one is fossil record. We are going to take a look at this one by one. Okay. Now, the first again is embryonic development. Now, when you say embryo here, this is the early stages of vertebrate development. Can anyone tell us what the meaning is of the term vertebrate? What does it mean when you say vertebrate? What's the meaning of the term vertebrate? You hear animals that are called vertebrates, and there are also some that are called invertebrates. Okay, a spine, that's correct. Something with a backbone, that's correct. Okay, so essentially, when you say vertebrates, these are animals that have backbones. Okay, these are animals that have spines. These are animals that have vertebrae. Okay, so when you say embryo here, these are, or this is the early stages of your vertebrate development. Now, according to your scientists, if you take a look at the embryo of different types of organisms, they all look very much the same. Okay, so say you have your fish here, you have your salamander, you have your tortoise, your chick, and this one right here, the last one is a human. Okay, if you are just looking at their embryos, you cannot really tell the difference. Okay, they all look the same. We all look like chicks, or we all look like rabbits, we all look like the fish. Okay, so according to the scientists, this is one proof that we all came from one common ancestor. Okay, embryonic development is very similar. We all look the same whenever we are still, or we were still in our embryonic stage. Okay, so again, this is the first evidence that your scientist has given. Your scientists have given. Okay, now these here are some other pictures of your embryo. So this here is a chick. This is a turtle. This here is a human. Okay, so if there is no label, you can't really tell which one is which. Okay, we all look the same essentially when you are looking at the different embryo. Okay, so again, this is the first evidence that has been given by our scientists. Now, secondly, we have body structures. According to scientists, okay, they have noticed that vertebrates, still animals with backbones, had similar bone structure. Okay, so you have these 4 different structures here, all coming from different types of animals. Okay, so this here is a human arm. This is a limb of your dog, a leg of your dog. This is the wing of your bird, and this here is the flipper of your whale. Okay, they all look differently. They all have different functions. The human arm, for example, is used whenever we write, whenever we move something, whenever we're using our hands. Okay, your dog's legs, on the other hand, this is used for mobility. Okay, for running, for walking. The wings of your birds, of course, that's used for flying. And the flippers of your whales, that's used for swimming. Okay, they all have different uses. They may look differently once they are in their mature forms, but essentially, your scientists said they all have the same bone structure. Okay, and that tells us that they all have come from the same embryonic tissue. Okay, their embryonic source is the same. Now, under your body structures, we have 2 terms. The first term that we have here is homologous structures. I've just talked about this. So when you say homologous structures, these are structures that have different mature forms. They also have different functions, but essentially they came from the same embryonic tissue. Okay, the same embryonic tissue. So example, again, would be your human arm, the dog's limbs, the wings of your bird, your flippers for the whale. Okay, so they all look differently. Their mature forms, their functions are different, but of course, their bone structures are the same. They all came from the same embryonic tissue. That's your homologous structures. Homo means the same. Okay. Now, the second type of structure that we have here are your vestigial structures. These are structures that can be found in an organism's body, but apparently they have no purpose. Okay. They don't really have an apparent use. So example for this would be your appendix. Appendix in men, the pelvic bone of whales, they're not really using their pelvic bones. Okay. So this is considered a vestigial organ. That's considered a vestigial organ, vestigial structure. It is not really used by your organism. It is just there. Okay. So say you have appendicitis, your enlargement of your appendix becomes infected. Your appendix becomes so large that the doctor now is going to give you a surgery. Otherwise, you will die. Okay. Now, once the doctor has taken your appendix out of your body, you are still alive. Because, of course, your appendix is considered a vestigial structure. It has no apparent use. Okay, so those are the two different terms that we have under body structures. Homologous structures, they all came from the same embryonic tissue. And of course, when you say vestigial structures, these are structures that we have in our body that have no apparent use. Okay, now we go to the third evidence that was given by your scientist here. The third evidence that we have is microevolution. We've just talked about this a while ago. We said microevolution is the small-scale study of evolution, okay, over a shorter period of time, just involving fewer generations. So examples here would be your peppered moths, antibiotic resistance, pesticide resistance in insects, okay? So say you got sick, and you have taken your antibiotics. Say your doctor has given you antibiotic that was just 5 mg, 5 milligram. Okay, 5 milligrams. That was just the dosage of your antibiotics. Now, the first time that you take it in, it's still effective. Okay, but over a longer period of time, say maybe on several occasions you've been taking it, and then suddenly you found out that you still continue to get sick. You're still sick even if you are taking in this same antibiotic that has made you feel better before. Okay, why? Because the pathogen, whatever substance it is that's making you sick, had already developed antibiotic resistance. Okay, so that is an example of your microevolution. The same thing in your pests. If they have developed pesticide resistance, your farmer may find himself using more and more, maybe higher dosage, higher concentration of your pesticides, because the pests have already gotten resistance. They've already formed resistance to that form of pesticide. Now, one specific example that we have here are your peppered moths. Okay, now a long time ago, people said the wings of your peppered moths were clear. The wings were white. Okay, because a long time ago, the environment, the atmosphere was very clean. It was very clean. It was non-polluted. Now, as the environment, as the air becomes more polluted, the wings of your peppered moths also became darker. Okay, they became darker because they are using this to camouflage. They're using this to blend in to their environment. Okay, so that's one example of your microevolution. It started with white wings, but because of the change in their environment, they needed to adapt. Okay, they needed to have darker wings because so then they can camouflage. Okay, they can blend into their environment. So again, this is an example of your microevolution. Any questions so far? Any questions, people? Make sure that you're listening. You might see this in your common assessment tomorrow. Okay, now the fourth evidence that we have here is biomolecules. Okay, we've talked about biomolecules, especially your genes, your amino acids. You remember your codon chart, the AUG, GCC, GUA. Okay, all those three letters that we have are considered, or those that we consider your codons. Okay, now according to this theory here, according to this fourth evidence, the more alike two organisms are, the more amino acids they have in common. Okay, the sequence of the amino acids that they have, the sequence of those codons are going to also be very similar. Okay, now according to scientists, we are 98% chimpanzees. Okay, we are very similar to chimps. 98% of our chromosomes are the same as the chromosomes of the chimps. Okay, so again, your biomolecules here, the fourth evidence said, the more alike your amino acids are, the more related the two of you are. Okay, which is true. If you are going to check the chromosomes maybe of your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, you are going to have the same characteristics. Okay, more or less, especially if you're twins. Okay, so again, the more alike two organisms are, the more amino acids they have in common. That is the fourth evidence. Now, the last evidence that we have here is fossil records. Now, when you say fossils, of course, these are the preserved remains of organisms. Might be plants, it might be animals. Now, when you say fossil record, on the other hand, this is all the fossils that have been collected all over the world. Okay, so this is the record. This is the collection of fossils that have been collected all over the world. Now, it is very important for you to note that not all organisms become fossilized, especially if their bodies are soft. Okay, it is very difficult to make fossils if the bodies of your organisms are soft. So say you have soft-bodied animals, a long time ago, some forms of animals are soft-bodied, or you have very soft types of plants, it's very difficult to make fossils of them. Okay. Also, it's very important to note that over 99% of all species that have ever lived on Earth have become extinct. That means they're all gone. Okay. We no longer see these types of species. That's why it is very important that we conserve, we take care of all the animals, of all the plants, of all the species that we have right now. Because if we don't, there is a very big risk. There is a very big possibility that your children in the future, your grandkids would no longer see these types of organisms. Okay, those that are endangered, those that are going to become extinct.